Hey everybody, it's Carrie Hoffmeister here with Carrie on Abundant TV. I am so excited to have my first husband and wife musical duo on the show, Seth and Nirva ready. Thank you so much for being on, guys. Welcome.
Thank you, Carrie. Thanks for having us.
Thank you
Thanks
so
so
much.
much.
Yeah, I'm so excited to have you both on. We haven't had a husband and wife on. We've had brother-in-laws, we've had groups, we've had singles, but we have not had a husband and wife. So I'm excited for when we play our game later to
Boy,
see
here we go.
what the competition level is like.
Yes, we'll see how it
Exactly.
goes.
Yes. And we'll try not to fight
We'll
on
try
this
to
podcast.
behave.
We'll represent
But-
husband and wives well. We'll do our
Oh,
best.
but everybody knows that we like to start the show with what we call carry on the questions. Thought it was clever.
Very cool.
So
Like
since
it.
we have husband and wife, we're going to do some most likely questions.
Okay.
Get to tell on each other and see.
Ah,
Yeah. So you can just point or say whatever you want to do, but we're going to go ahead and start. Are you ready?
Yep.
Okay. Hopefully we don't start an argument here.
Right.
Okay. Who is most likely to forget to put gas in the car?
wait. It depends.
Are you serious? That's not even a hard one.
Who is most likely to burn dinner?
Ooh, that's
Me.
Okay.
Okay.
Who is most likely to get lost on vacation?
Ooh.
Uh,
I would say me.
yeah.
Probably me.
You took it.
Really challenged. Yeah. That's myself.
Who is most likely to leave their clothes on the floor? You're pointing to each other. Who is most likely to hug the covers at night?
Oh.
Yeah.
Sure.
Who is most likely to lose their keys?
Oh.
Yeah, it's true.
It's true. Who is most likely to misplace their phone?
Oh gosh. That's, I mean, point every.
Yeah.
This is like an hourly occurrence.
Oh, okay. Last question.
Okay. Drum roll.
Who is most likely to miss their flight because they packed at the last minute?
Ooh.
Well, see, I'm sorry, I keep messing with your questions here. No. Well,
He underestimates how long it takes to get to the airport and how long it takes to pack. Therefore, I say,
how many flights have I missed, baby?
many flights have I missed?
A couple.
No.
Oh no, what did I do?
Wait.
I'm glad we did that first, so that way we can release like some tension throughout the podcast.
Right.
So when it's done, you guys are okay.
So good.
All right. So you guys are married. How long have you guys been married? How did you meet? Just give us a little bit of your background.
Yes, I'll give you the true version of how we met. So,
Speaking of
we
challenges,
coming up on 17 years in July.
Oh, congrats.
Thank you very
Thank
much. And so yeah, we met on the road traveling. The first time we met was backstage at a Billy Graham crusade, Qualcomm Stadium in San
Wow.
Diego, one of his last ones. And so, it was quick, just backstage. I was singing with Kirk Franklin, she was singing with Toby Mac. So we just, in passing kind of deal. Met again at another event where Kirk and Toby did a tour together. And, it's funny because she doesn't remember meeting me the first two times we met. And so I always said I made, just a massive impression. She was putty in my hands, right away. But anyways, but yeah, we, so I liked, for me, I always say this: love at second sight. For her, love at 554th sight. I had to wear her down through friendship. She friend zoned me pretty hard, but I got out and escaped. And, a couple years later, she repented of her ways and saw the light. And we got married, and it's been great, man. We split up like the first 2 months, really. Most of the time we were gone separately. So we spent
were doing
the
that
first
life and
several years doing a lot of separate traveling and separate tours before we finally started doing stuff together. So that's been just a cool journey for us to, we love to get to do ministry together, and are thankful for the opportunities that we've had. Yeah.
Well, you guys were both, from what I saw, like you sang for other people. So Nirva, you sang with Toby Mac, right?
yes.
And Seth, you were kind of with a few different people, right? So that's really cool, that first of all. But you guys do a lot of things. And, I feel like I couldn't just say you're a musical duo. You have your podcast that we can see right there, Free Mind. And am I correct, Nirva, that you're an assistant professor in Virginia?
It is. You're right. I mean, that's funny. She said we do a lot of things. I guess we kind of do. Yeah, these are some of our passions. We've always loved music, of course, ministry. Seth has always had a passion for apologetics and helping people develop a Christian worldview, and that's rubbed off on me. And the idea of a university has always been a wonderful thought to me, and to be able to be a part of a team like Liberty that is just, their mission is training champions for Christ. So I'm in the School of Music, so that combines two loves, and it's just awesome. I love it.
Do you guys ever sleep? Because I feel like,
Ah,
Man, it gets, it kind of comes in waves. So right now, thankfully, she's got a little bit of a break with
yeah, we're off for
summer.
the summer.
And so,
Okay.
that's why we tried to like strategically plan, like, okay, we're going to put out music
That's
in the
true.
summer.
That's true.
So you can have time to do stuff like this. Cause it's, during the school
Breathe.
year, it's like,
nuts.
Yeah. Well, you have your new EP that came out on June 2nd called On Earth. It's a 6-song EP. I was kind of reading individually of some of the songs that you have on there. So I know Armor is about fear, anxiety, and depression from the pandemic. But not only, and we'll talk about On Earth, but I think what I really loved reading was even like your past albums, they all kind of have a theme of things that you guys really want to discuss. And I know racial reconciliation and apologetics was one of them. How did this come about for you to want to be able to speak on that? Is this things that you have experienced being in an interracial couple that became passionate of, maybe things that you've dealt with personally?
Good question. I would say that I went into marriage just falling in love with my soulmate. I had no idea that God would use us in that capacity. But, when you think about it, it's like, duh, we are an interracial couple. But I remember we got an opportunity to do some ministry in London, and where we shared our testimony and sort of how we had come together and shared the story of how God used us in race reconciliation kind of opportunities. And I tell you what, the line was wrapped outside the door of people waiting to talk to us about it. And I was like, whoa, this is an opportunity, and God is using us. And so what we've always tried to do is just wrap things in a biblical framework, or just see things from a biblical framework, and how God has torn down the walls, and that as ministers of the gospel, we carry that ministry of reconciliation. But there was just so much going on in our world and our nation at that time, and so it became just a big part of our ministry. On a previous album, we released a song called Brother that talks about loving your enemy and just seeing the person that you disagree with through the eyes of God, and that how we are all created in the image of God, and we all bear his identity. And in a video, when we present that song, we have a quote from Martin Luther King that says, like, hate is a cancer. And Martin Luther King preached that, like, hate, train your children to not hate, because that hurts. Hate is more detrimental to the person hating than the person that you hate. Mm-hmm. And so all of these things we just wrap into our ministry. We are able to kind of like take normal life. Okay, what does God have to say about relationships? What does God have to say about the church? What does God have to say about finances, government? And so that's sort of how we kind of stew on the thoughts that are behind the message in the music. It's kind of birthed from what we're walking through, what we feel God is saying, what he wants to say to the body, what he wants to speak about culture.
yeah.
What would you add to that, love?
No, this may be a long answer, so I apologize.
But
you asked the question, did we kind of run into that? I think we've talked about this a little bit in the past. We ran into it, with some family members of mine, my grandparents, and it was interesting because they were Christian, but they had taken on an unbiblical perspective with regard to ethnicity.
Mm-hmm.
And so they did have this unbiblical bias against her. And so they, long story short, God really did a miracle, and my granddad repented and came to her, and there was just this amazing moment, and God was doing something in her heart and his heart, and teaching her how to like not respond in kind, but now, I always say they actually love her more than they love me. It's been stories. So we weren't, we don't, that wasn't the typical experience for us. That was more the margin, but it was a real thing with that age group that sometimes still exists. What became interesting later on was to face something on the other side of the issue, and that was this infusion of the broader theories called critical theory, the more narrow sometimes called critical race theory, but it was an ideology that was sweeping into the church, particularly among typically people our age and younger, that was just as racist, but from a different perspective. It was from the Marxist, kind of neo-Marxist perspective. And so as we begin to do, just to talk about ethnicity from a biblical perspective, we found that more often than not, whereas we had to address it with my granddad on one side, we were having to address it when we went to universities from a completely different perspective. But in both cases, we were trying to give the biblical plumb line and say, is this ideology that you're adopting, is it in line with this? And so part of that was to throw us into doing the podcast, because we needed a longer form kind of place where we could talk through these issues that deserved a deeper discussion, because they were coming at us. They've been coming at us through universities for years, but now they were really pushing it through the propaganda media. And you can see this in, even the Pride Month thing that's going on. In many ways, they've hijacked the civil rights movement, and they've tried to connect it to this sexual anarchy push.
Yeah.
And for instance, there's a good video from Vodi Bakum on YouTube people can look up called "Gay is the New Black," and he really goes through the history of this. Now, unfortunately, there is some good evidence he points out from the beginning of the civil rights movement where people were trying to connect them from the very beginning. But the major point I'm trying to make here is Satan is very tricky. So you have to watch him on both sides. And I think if you're talking about like what's the zeitgeist or what's the cultural flavor of our day, like what's the thing we're having to face, it's more in that area. It's not the old Jim Crow South. It's we have to fight off these ideologies that are wanting to come in and give a perspective on justice that's against the Bible. And for instance, the Bible talks about do not have partiality, have equal weights and measures. But the social justice movement wants to have unequal measures to equal the outcomes. And that's just one example of how social justice in the modern sense runs against biblical justice. And the other connection there is, again, with LGBTQ ideology trying to hijack the moral capital of the civil rights movement, which can only be grounded in Martin Luther King. He had some problems as well. We're not painting him as a perfect leader, but on this issue, he was exactly right. You cannot ground the movement for civil rights in anything but the Imago Dei. Mm-hmm. And so that requires the being made in the image of God. That requires God and the fact that he created us with a certain nature that flourishes in a certain context. And so if we run against that, if we deconstruct that, we're going against God, and we no longer have a ground to argue for civil rights from. And so now you have a whole society that has disconnected itself from the branch that it was sitting on, trying to make progress while burning down the very building that even can have a place where you can have genuine progress. And so now I think we spend more of our time trying to help our younger brothers and sisters just to see the plays that are being run on them, so that they don't do what my grandparents did and live all these years with an unbiblical perspective, but they can have their mind transformed by the renewing of the word, and so they're not conformed to the patterns of this world.
Yeah. I really appreciate you being open about that, and just, your podcast and what you guys talk about. So when did Free Mind begin, and what are the other things that you discuss on your podcast, and what kind of reaction have you seen through it? You both are smiling.
So do you want to start, baby?
No, baby, you got it.
It
was his baby. He came to me and said, I think we need to do a podcast. And my immediate reaction was like, no, please, no podcast, no,
Really?
no, yeah, because back then I thought people were nuts. I didn't want to get engaged and involved. But what happened was we started seeing things. We were very active in the music industry, and we just started noticing things and patterns. And out of a love and a concern, we because a lot of these situations came out of unanswered questions, or like you say, places or really important topics where people didn't have a place to discuss it or even bring it up or have a biblical perspective or have conversations at all. And so, but over the years, I've come to just truly love and appreciate it because I've grown so much from it. We've had experts come and talk and share about things. And then just being able to really research and look into a topic and see what culture is saying versus what the Bible has to say. That's a fascinating process for me to just say, okay, you know what? Nothing's new under the sun. The enemy is still challenging what God has spoken and what God has said through his word. But I promise to go where he goes. And so he said podcast it was.
She came along for the ride and was a good wife. And, you know, and like she said, I knew it wasn't her cup of tea. And to be honest, like, addressing those issues isn't like part of my natural personality either. I'm not actually a confrontational type of person. If people know me, know that, like, I'll be in the room with people, she'll laugh at me because she'll know I've like studied this topic for years and they'll be talking about it and I won't say a word.
He'll be silent. He'll just listen and just let people process. And I'm like,
yeah,
say something.
and so, you know, that's my personality. But I did feel stirred up. In particular, there was a large Christian artist at the time who, you know, got basically, in my view, gave a really bad biblical answer to the issue of homosexuality in a public forum. And I thought, you know, we had traveled for years and seen, you know, behind the scenes in the Christian world, and there's a lot of good folks, but I had noted for years, she could testify to this. I was like, man, I don't know that we're doing a good job training up our artists in Christian worldview and to know the truth, to be able to stand up like in a secular space, you know, if they hit you with those tough questions, to be able to represent a biblical perspective. And so at this point I was like, you know what, well, I can't just complain about it. I can't just get frustrated. I've got to pick up my little weapon and go to war, you know. And so it just started for us from that place. I knew it wasn't going to be the kind of, like, sometimes you start a podcast because you're like, man, this will help me build my brand and my business. I knew that it wouldn't be that kind of podcast because of the things we would be taking on. And sometimes that can happen, but for us, it's been more of a small, you know, kind of dedicated following people, but I think it's helped people and their families, like you said, like, how do we address these things? And some people are coming from similar backgrounds where they might have been over sheltered, and the temptation is like, oh, well, just anything and everything is fine, you know, to run the other direction. And so what we're trying to do is like, man, no, that's, you know, there's a biblical way, like, to understand God's law and grace and how to put those in their proper perspectives. But we've taken on everything from like abortion to LGBTQ issues to, you know, the shootings that were happening. We've addressed, you know, COVID and the stuff that's behind that. Like, and it's not been like the kind of, we tried to stay away from like click button type topics. That's not why we do it. But I do try to take on stuff where I think like, okay, this is going out into culture. This is going out, especially into the church culture. And I don't think they see the play that's being run on them. And while we've studied this stuff, we have really come to see like there's a lot more going on behind the scenes than people are often aware of. And we've seen this, you've probably seen this being in media, but you know how things go. And now it's like, I tell people, hey, if you see like Starbucks, Target, YouTube, Spotify, if they're all promoting any one thing, you can pretty much know that one thing is for your detriment. Like these days, like they're getting their cues from certain people and they're pushing certain agendas, and all these agendas are aimed right now. The aim is toward God's creational norms, toward the embedded, you know. C.S. Lewis wrote a really good book that's very relevant for our time called The Abolition of Man. And in that book, he talks about something called the Tao, and he took it from a Chinese kind of concept, but it's the moral and rational framework that's embedded into reality. moral and rational framework that some Christians have called it natural law and connected it to Romans 1, but it's the kind of thing that God has built. He's hardwired us to understand certain elements of good and evil, certain elements of rationality that we are just born with. Well, that Tao is what was under attack in his day at the university level, but that Tao is what's being attacked now in every level, from the street to the media. So it's not enough, I think, for us Christians to back out of that fight and say, well, we're just going to preach the gospel. Because the thing that you can even preach the gospel in the context that makes sense is that framework is being attacked. So that's where actually the main battle is right now, as I see it. And so when we got into this podcast, it was like, man, we've got to do, this is where the wall, if you think about Nehemiah and Ezra, this is where the wall needs to be built right now for our children, for our other brothers and sisters, as we have to stand with our sword and our trowel, right, and fight and build at the same time.
Yeah, that's so good. Thanks for sharing that. And sorry, I lost my light. So
I saw that. You're
like, what's happening? Is my computer shutting down?
You're good.
But thank you guys for sharing that. And your podcast sounds amazing. And I love that you talk about those things and that you're tackling those things that we all are struggling with. So many people are struggling with, and you're not afraid to talk about those things and stand strong in them. Let's get into your new EP that came out, On Earth. I listened to a little bit of it today, and you guys are amazing. You guys really are amazing. And I love your sound. I love what this stands for and what this means, and just what you're really, you guys you have such a sweet spirit about both of you, and that you just really love the Lord and the message that you're wanting to spread to people. So just give us a little bit rundown on what On Earth means to you guys and what it's about and how this came about.
Sure.
Yeah, I thank you. First of all, thank you for giving it a listen and your kind words. These songs represent just some of the things God was birthing in our hearts, just encouraging us in, and just what we felt would be an encouragement to the body and whoever would listen. The prayer, let your kingdom come, let your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. That's a prayer, the Lord's Prayer, we kind of take for granted, and we seldom pray that. We do, but like when we really ponder those words, I think there's never a better time to truly pray that than now. And it's like, that we felt like that would be a great title for the whole EP, is On Earth, God, your kingdom come, your will be done. And then there's a song on our EP called Firefall, which is praying for it's a song of intercession, that God's fire would fall. And it's a twofold thing, that one, my heart would be on fire for the Lord again, and that God would come and his fire would come and just ruin and uproot the plans of the wicked that want to tear down his created order. And so these songs just kind of represent our journey over the past few years of being in the pit, hearing from God, crying out to God. And we were just praying that it would be an encouragement to those who listen, that God has not left us alone. He has not left us to be wimps. He is our daddy. He's a good daddy. He empowers us. He encourages us. He speaks to us. He's not far, but he's quite close. Even in these crazy times that we're living in, that we don't have to lose heart. We can take up the armor of God and put it on and be strong in him. We could take up his word of truth and just and breathe it in, but just really meditate on it and then receive a word that really speaks to us concerning our culture, concerning the times. So it's kind of just a collection of songs birthed from that place.
Yeah, that's good, babe.
I love that. Do you guys write your music? Do you write together?
We do. We wrote all these songs together.
Yeah.
And I'll come up with an idea sometimes, and if I bring it to him and he smiles and nods and I know it's a good song, if he's like, oh, and I'm like, I'll go back and I'll keep working on it. But yeah, we do write together.
Yeah, she started all these songs, in fact, and then I just kind of jumped in and helped. So this is the first album we've done where we're just the two of us wrote every song.
Good
yeah,
times.
we did feel like we had something very specific to say in this album, and we knew what it was. So we said, you know what, we're just gonna work until we get it right.
We took our time.
and take our time and do this. And so it's really in line. And it's like that song. I love that song, actually, On Earth. she started just playing on the guitar and singing, "Our Father, art in heaven, hallowed be thy sacred name." Just singing the Lord's Prayer.
Mhm.
And it was so beautiful. And then so we did this progression in that the second verse about bread of heaven, come and fill us.
Satisfier.
Satisfy our yearning souls. Your people long for your dominion. Let your kingdom come. Let your will be done. We were trying to draw that idea of like God's kingdom, is not just ethereal 17th dimension out there somewhere, but it's his rule that
Mhm.
happens through us here on earth as well. And so we're praying for that dominion, that rule. And then the third verse where we had a student from Liberty do the feature for it, God of justice, come reign o'er us. Teach our hearts to love your ways. And that was the idea of like, man, we're living under a lot of injustice right now. We can tell the court systems are corrupt. We can tell leaders are majorly corrupt. They're working against God. They just hung the sexual anarchy flag on the White House last week, and so we're saying, no, we want God.
Yeah.
We want you. We want the King of Kings. We want
Shine
our
your light.
quote unquote kings, that our senators, our Congress, our presidents, we want them to bow to the King. And we know when rulers rule justly, the people rejoice, right? And so that's part of that prayer, and that song is like, man, God, we know that as a nation we deserve your judgment, but we're asking on behalf, would you have mercy, and would you raise up leaders in the public square, and then would you help us to embody that in our little dominion, which is our household, right? To build that under the rulership and headship of Christ. So yeah, that's a little snapshot of what we were trying to accomplish in these songs.
That's so good. All right, so we're gonna go into our game now.
Okay.
This is gonna transition to, we know you guys write your stuff, you write together. So this is gonna be a good, healthy competition of who knows them better.
Why?
So this is what we call name your song. So it's pretty much as simple as that.
Okay,
I have written down a line or two, and I'm just gonna warn you, I've tried to go back so that they're not like new and fresh in your mind.
Here we go. Okay, noted. Good morning.
Yeah. So I tried to go back, and I listened really good, so hopefully these lyrics are correct. But so I'm gonna give you a line or two, and you guys, you can just, whoever knows it first, just tell me the title to the song, and we'll see. I have 6 songs. I was like, man, I probably should have done 7 in case there's a tiebreaker, but we'll figure it out.
You got it.
Okay. All right. Are you guys ready?
Ready.
Okay. We are alive and we're awake, moving the power of
Back down. We won't back down.
That's good. That's good. Okay. Next one. My voice can hardly speak. You know the pain I've seen.
Mercy.
You know what's funny is that's your line that you sing in it, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
And then you got, I think that was your line.
Yeah. Right.
Oh, funny.
We know our own lines.
That's funny, because when I was doing them, I was doing a lot of your lines, and I was like, I don't know if that's fair, because
That's very judicious.
so I tried to mix it up. Okay. Next one. Calling all my people, it's time for us to shine.
Oh, that's your jam. That's his jam. Okay.
Did
you say it?
I did. Yeah.
And I think that's your line too, isn't it? Is that your line?
No, that's actually hers.
Is that mine? Yeah.
That's
okay.
But I think I wrote that line.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
All right. So we have 2-1.
Yeah, he's up.
Okay. Maybe you catch them by surprise. Maybe you set some people free.
I want the whole world.
And that's your line. I think I remember that. Right?
Yeah. Okay.
All right. 2-2.
Tied up.
The struggle never ends. We've lost our peace within.
Is that Stand in the Need of Prayer?
No.
Oh, it's
what? Say it again. Say it again.
The struggle never ends. We've lost our peace within.
Oh, what is that one?
Oh, Be Still.
Yep. Be Still.
Good
Is
job.
that the right lyrics?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so
I think we'd know better than
Okay.
we have one more, so I'm gonna have to come up with the tiebreaker if you get this. All right. You listen to our crying hearts. We scream out loud in need of a father's love.
Oh my gosh.
I love this one, by the way.
Is it I Need You?
No.
Can you read it one more time?
Yeah.
Yeah. You listen to our crying hearts. We scream out loud in need of a father's love.
Oh, that's from the first EP. The one Matt wrote.
Oh, I Found Love. Found a Love.
Found a love.
Gotta help me.
I
She
didn't
gotta
tell you, so I get a little quarter
Man, you
point to
He
that.
gets a
that's
little
crazy.
credit for that.
That's a good one. Oh my gosh.
I love that one, by the way. That one was beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That is wonderful.
Oh, well, that was fun.
That
Well,
was really fun. Thanks for that. Wow. We got to brush up on our
I know,
lyrics,
right?
love.
I always say I'm just trying to help everyone out. Seth and Nirva, thank you so much for being on today. I feel like I could talk to you both all day long, and you're just such a blessing. Just thank you for your ministry. I love that you both get to serve together and sing together and write together and do your podcast together and all of the things, just spreading the love of Jesus. And I just really appreciate you being on today. Real quick, where can people listen to your podcast?
Yeah, so we do put it up on YouTube, but occasionally, we do Rumble only. So if they go on YouTube, I think it's Free Mind Podcast. Rumble, it's Free Mind FM. So, but if they want to just listen to audio, it's pretty much any digital thing, but they can go to the website freemind.fm, and I think that'll lead you to whichever one you want to listen on. They can also go to our website, sethandnirva.com, and the and is spelled out. And that's kind of a hub for our music as well as the podcast.
Awesome. And then, you can also go to sethandnirva.com and see where their music is streamed and listen to their music as well. And their new EP that came out June 2nd. Make sure you take a listen. And thank you so much both for being on today.
Thank you, Carrie. We had a fun time.
Yeah,
Thanks
thank you
so
so
much for
much.
all you do as well. Blessings on your podcast and marriage and family.
Oh, thank you so much. And thank you all for watching. And until next time, remember to carry on.